Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Marketing Metrics and Marketing Dashboards. Today I'm going to look a little bit about your online campaigns, and like I said, I want to do a little bit of introduction and move up from there. It's important that you understand the terminology, because if you don't understand the terminology, you're going to struggle in the boardroom with analyzing the data to your avail. This is a screenshot which was taken from a program called SciSense, which I obtained. In the information, it's about a marketing campaign, and they give a lot of information. For instance, total visit by device, desktop, mobile, tablet, visit by channels, visit via affiliate channels, direct connection, display ads, organic search, paid search, referrals, or social media. What are the top browsers? The top 10 browsers, Opera, Chrome, Edge, Android, or whatever. And then they also give you the increase in visits compared to the previous years. Now, the first thing that I want to mention, it's important that you note of the following. Like I said, I do the very basic that people don't fall behind on terminology. A lot of times they will use the terminology MTD or YTD. Now, that stands for month to date or year to date. So what this means is that if you're on the 31st of January, that would imply that YTD is year to date. That would be 31 days. Month to date would also be 31 days. But if we are on the 28th of February or the 29th of February, that one implies the YTD would be for 60 days and the MTD, month to date, would be on 29 days. So it's important for you to note of that, because that influences the statistics and the graphs. Obviously, the further in the year you moved along, the YTD, the amounts would be considerably more than compared to the MTD. Then also rolling 7 days. A lot of people get confused with this terminology. What it means is it's the moment the report was generated, going backwards 7 days. Now, technically speaking, it should be on the hour, on the minute, on the second. That's how it should be. Although there might be an instance where the programming is done differently, but the correct method should actually be from the second going backwards, 24 hours schedules or 24-hour jumps. But you can think about that. That also might generate a problem, and this is vital for you to note, because it influences how the programmers give you the information, your interpretation of the information. Because if you work on office hours, although there's an online campaign, so the website doesn't really close, but if it's a store and you draw the report on a Friday at 9 a.m., that means the store would have been open for an hour, and that will influence how you view it, because now for today you only get 1 hour, and then you go back till 9 o'clock yesterday, back till 9 o'clock the previous day, and so forth. So it will influence, it can influence your statistics and your analysis of your graphs. So it's important for you to note that. What we can see here, interesting, total visits. Again, K stands for kilo or 1,000, and M stands for million. So that's 111,000 versus 2 million. So the month to date, we're 111,000. In this month, 96,000 are new, which is exponentially steep curve. Your total visits is 2 million, and it's a doubling up of your previous total visits. Now, once again, you need to understand how the programming works, and you need to ensure that IT programs it correctly, because if this is done incorrectly, because we're talking year to date, if they simply take last year versus year to date, this would be inaccurate. Um, Ideally, one would compare year to date compared to the previous year to date, or the previous time till this date. So if you had year to date, you're on 28 or 29 February, and it's 2020, then technically speaking, if you want to do a good analysis, one would rather go and say, listen, 2019 from the beginning of the year until the 29th of February, compared to now currently on 2020 from the 1st of January till the 29th of January, then you would get a better analysis and indication of how you performed. Else, to put it in more simple terms, say for instance, you draw the report end of January or end of February, you only have 1 month or 2 months. Now, if you compare that with the entire year last year, it might seem that your visits actually decreased. Only because the fact that last year you had 12 months of your reporting period, which you compared to this year of 1 or 2 months. So logically speaking, you're not comparing apples to apples. So that's what I'm trying to explain here is you need to understand how IT build your system. If they do it in a way that you're not exactly sure about, it might give you the wrong impression, which results in you interpreting the information incorrectly. You don't want to start firing people because your online campaign is going so badly, whereas, listen, you're comparing 1 month with the entire year last year. So in the board meeting, it's wise to always ask, what is YTD? Previous term, does it mean until today's date, or does it mean the entire year? Yes, it should mean until today's date, 1 year backwards, 2020 versus 2019, but there might be an instance where it was programmed incorrectly. So please note of that. Rolling 7 days, this should mean that we had almost a 90% new visits or visit growth compared to the previous 7-day period. Now, come to think of it, if I think logically about what I just said, something in this graph is amiss, because we got, that is, I could just remember this is American system of showing dates. So they show the month first, and then the day, and then the year. A lot of countries, like in South Africa, we show they show the month first, then the day, and then the year. In South Africa and a lot of other countries, you would swap the first two around. So you would have the 11th of the first month, the 19th of the first month. So those two swap around. But in this instance, you've got the first month, the second month, the third month, the fourth month, the fifth month, 6th month, and the 7th month, and then just a little bit of the 8th month. Now, even in this, there's a little bit of a problem in this report for me. Like you would see, they're not really comparing apples with apples, because they start on 1/11/19 or 11 January 2019 and the same year, but on the last date, and this is vital that you always verify what are you looking for, what are you looking at. You would see it stops here on 8/6/19 versus 8/7/19. So that's 1 day later. Now it can be just the fact that there wasn't enough space, so it just dropped the last date. But this is typically where you need to ask IT, listen, does it include the last day or not? Because this is the 7th of August 2019, that's the 6th of August 2019, and that is the 6th of August 2019. So did we have a data outage? Did we not get the information? I remember when I worked at Shoprite head office, we struggled a few years ago, well, more than 10 years ago with getting data out of Africa. We had scenarios where some places we would take 3 months to get the data. Um, I'll not explain to you the exact reason, but there was an operational challenge associated with it. And they ended up sending the data via ship to Cape Town and loaded it on the servers. And then the problem was that only happened every 1 month or every 3 months or so forth. So the reports was also not always 100% up to date for that country. Specifically, it was Angola. So that might be an instance where you get something like this, that the data is still going to be populated, or the server is busy drawing the information. When you drew the report, another country or another shop or whatever, it populated this data, that data, but it was still downloading this data from the stores, if it is a physical stores. Online environment, it shouldn't be that difficult. But now I want to show you something else. Coming to marketing and digital marketing, you would see here the following, and this comes in with your marketing campaign strategy. You've got desktop visits, you've got mobile visits, you've got tablet visits. Now the tablet visits is that little green speck at the bottom. Then you've got your mobile visits, which is a lot more. And then desktop visits, which is considerably more. Now, my logic tells me that includes laptops. But the thing is, how are you designing your website? If a person views a website on a computer, a PC or laptop versus a tablet, the size of the screen reduces, and the mobile it even reduces even more, which generates problems with layout and visibility and whatever. Where you would see this the best is normally if you take Google's homepage. It doesn't matter on what size screen you open it, you get the information which you're looking for, everything is there. But now you go to news websites like news24.com, news24.com. They've got a lot of articles, and they've got sections and questions and polls they ask. And now a person opens it in a tablet. Now, what do you put there and what do you take away? Online stores the same. So you need to take that in cognizance when you're designing a website, that how many users are coming from which site. And especially when it comes to the online environment, it is vital for you to understand that it is difficult to get somebody to your site. It costs you money normally. And if the person is there, and because you were so stuck on, I want this thing to look like this, graphic designers are often, or even IT people are often very stuck, this is the way it should be, that they forget, listen, but the reason for our website is either to engage with the customer, get our name, our brand out there, or to sell something. So now the person comes to your website, they can't really see what they're looking for because they're using a smaller screen, and then the people leave your website. So then another thing, you would see that you've got peaks and valleys and peaks and valleys and peaks and valleys going up and down. This is typically analysis on a weekly basis. You would get certain days of the year or the week where people visit websites less. You can imagine how people who do holiday booking for a hotel, they would most probably do that after hours or especially weekends, personal holidays, whereas business trips would be in the middle of the week. People would book that. So that gives you an idea of when people visit sites. You get certain things where people visit more during the week, certain type of products, looking at it more, or services, and whereas other products are more viewed during the weekends or after hours. Now, if you analyze this information, I'm not really going to go into that. It's interesting that on some days the mobile goes a little bit steeper than other days. But what concerns me a bit is the following. You don't always look at the peaks. Look at the valleys also. There's a big problem. I don't know what happened there. There's also a big problem. And what concerns me is why did it peak there and immediately followed by a deep valley? That valley is the second lowest of all the valleys. So in a scenario like this, you can obviously click with your mouse and view in and click more and view in, and you can perhaps see, listen, our server was down. People could not access our website. Or like in the South African context, what we had a while ago quite often was load shedding due to bad management of government. And the cell phone towers just simply, they've got backup power. When the power is out for that battery, for that cell phone tower, no internet connection. So your mobile devices would drop considerably. And yeah, that might have an influence like this. Although if you look at the, yeah, it seems like the mobile devices dropped a lot. Okay, so there might be other reasons as well. The big thing with analyzing data, you need to have a hell of a lot of common sense. I always joke with my students and I tell them the most difficult subject or module to pass at university is a subject called Common Sense 111. And first year module, and it's not a really existing module, I'm just making it up, but logic and common sense, a lot of people simply do not have it. The way you get logic and common sense is you must read up a lot about a lot of different things. You must know the company and the operation of the company, and in this instance, how the IT works. Normally, you must know how the reports are being drawn from an IT perspective. But the less you know about the operations of the company or the world out there, the more challenging you're going to be in identifying discrepancies or the reasons for that. I remember many years ago at ShopRite, we had a scenario where we ran out of canned fish. And we went into the reporting and we couldn't figure out why the hell are we running out of stock because we're ordering. Then we went into the warehouse ordering and we saw that items were on back order, meaning they've been ordered by the order has been sent to the supplier, but the supplier doesn't deliver. Finally, we spoke to the supplier and they told us, but the trawlers are not, the fishing vessels are not bringing in fish. So they can't send the pilchards or whatever to ShopRite or Checkers. And finally, after that, we realized that the government brought out a new fishing quota affirmative action policy, which resulted in, unfortunately, was exploited by the public. So people up in the central area of South Africa, which was traditionally people who, well, they're not at the ocean, so they don't own boats. They got the quotas, and the black people got the quotas, and the colored people in the Western Cape, which traditionally they're the fishing people, they've got the trawlers, they've got the fishing vessels, and the problem is that they didn't get the quota, so their trawlers were standing still. So then the factory couldn't get its quotas or its fish, and then in the end the retailer ran out of stock. So you need to read up a lot. You need to know what's happening in the news. Things like in the global environment, things can influence you. Okay, then once again, you will see here's a peak on 5 August 2019. And if we go here, where's 5 August? Oh, so, sorry. Let me just make sure. Not 5 August, it's American system, so it's 8th of May 2019. You see how easy one swap those around. So 8th of May, if I'm looking for 8th of May here, I don't see it. You see, that's a problem with the end date being different. So now I must try and figure out where is the 8th. So it would be roughly there. Yeah, which seems to be there. It needs to be, there's a little bit of a bigger peak coming up slightly, but it's not really much bigger. And it seems like the organic search was the one that seems to be the darker pink there, increased a little bit. But since this doesn't really, you see that there's a lot of times when it's quite close compared to this one, where there's a quite steep rise compared to the other months, more so than in this one. One can deduce that a lot of this would have been repeat visits, because these visits came from social media, referral, direct paid search, affiliate, or other. Now, if that other does not relate to person typing in your website straightforward or coming from a bookmark straight to your website, that might result in this. So you see, the more you delve into information and in reports, the more questions you have. So the question that I would like to ask IT, other, does that imply people coming from directly to the website? They type in the company's name in the web browser and they come directly, or does it exclude that? If it excludes that, that's the logical deduction that one can take. It might not be the only reason, but you're using logic to deduce certain things. Now, then the question would be, why would people, if that is the case, why would people directly come and repeat visit the site? Maybe it's not even a repeat visit. Maybe it is where you had a traditional media campaign running, TV ads or whatever, and a lot of people started visiting your website. It might be something like that as well, because that will also not be indicated in total visit by channels, because how do you determine if a person visited your site because they saw a newspaper article, a magazine article, TV ad, radio ad, or something like that? So the other can indicate a lot of things. So typically what you want in a scenario like that is where you can click on other and it gives you some sort of breakdown. Remember, any marketing metrics, you can click on a place and you should be able to gather a new screen and get more information out of that. That's sort of zooming in at that space, that spot in time and space. Okay, then also we will see here, you see here we've got a 8th of May 2019 peak as well. And interestingly enough, it seems, you see the colors are once again very close to each other, which I don't like. The yellow is Safari. Then we've got dark green, light green. So, sorry, that's an in-app Safari. Then it's Safari. Then that one is most probably, the dark green is most probably Opera, and the light green, lighter green is Safari. And then it seems to be quite, if I have to choose between this, it sort of seems like on top there's a slightly darker color, which could be Chrome. So it seems like the majority of your visitors are coming from Internet Explorer. Now, once again, this is for you important when you run your campaign, because if you run your campaign, certain browsers can run certain applications, certain programming, JavaScripts or whatever in the background, whereas others don't, or like many years ago, when you used Microsoft front page to design a website, it designed the website to go with Internet Explorer. And when you try to open it in Firefox or you try to open it in Opera, it would completely be haywire, or back then Netscape Navigator. Now, you can't tell the consumer what browser to use. That's just stupid. The guy already, or the lady already came to your site using the browser that he or she prefers. Don't force the person to use another browser because you were so stupid. Yes, I'm saying it's stupid to decide you're designing this website only for Internet Explorer, because it seems like 3/4 of our people are coming from Internet Explorer. That's just a big no-no, because it's still 20-25% of your consumers, maybe closer to 20%, might not view your browser, your website very well. So in a scenario like this, it is advisable to always ensure that you design your website and then view it on all these browsers that you have here, and ensure that it is viewable. You can click in something, you can fill in forms, the applets are working, Flash Player is working, all those things. So it's important. But if I have to look at this just from a marketing metrics perspective, the first thing that I would say is I would applaud it for the fact that a lot of new is happening here. But in the same instance, I would have a hell of a fight with IT, because why don't I see this here? If we look at this for year to date, if we look at this, it's a doubling up, and the month to date is a doubling up. So what that should have been, I don't know if they mean that is a doubling up. Although you see that once again, I can't really see where the 1st of August is here. Is it there? Is it there? Where is it? But also, year to date, my logic tells me this graph, yeah, once again, you should have, if it's an increase based on last year, you should have some sort of a curve going upwards on all of these graphs. You should have something like that if it's year to date, doubling up. Even slightly, there should be an increase, and it doesn't seem like that from the beginning of January. Although if one really, and this is where I'm trying to see, if one really zooms in there, right at the bottom, it seems like it's almost nothing there going up. So there's something amiss with the display. Why, if that was a doubling up, why did it double up so quickly at the beginning of the year? We know from experience your peak time for retail is actually over December. So why did it jump from the previous year and then it went up in January such a lot, and then it repeated the same curve and things like that? So I would like to have IT and or even have the ability to click in and zoom and see last year's visits to be able to verify. Remember, never believe statistics and graphs 100%. There's always a chance of the data being incorrect or garbage data being in there. Yes, there's a saying in IT, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. And if you give the system garbage, it's going to give you a garbage report. But it's people who design the things, and people make mistakes as well. So you need to ensure that the information that you're getting is correct. But if we look at this marketing metrics analysis, referrals seem to be rising. Let's see, slightly increase on that. Organic search, there's a peak. So we need to find out, why did a lot of people on that date search for it? Did we run, like I suspect, a TV ad or something? And now people are searching for it. Google searching the company, or what? But then in the same instance, and this is what I don't understand, on this graph, we got the darker pink there, but I don't, where's the lighter pink? You see, we don't have a light pink here. So why is there such a light pink? And there's definitely a dark pink there, and there's definitely a dark pink there. or you know what's happening, could potentially be happening here. And if that is the case, then the report is displayed in a very bad way. You'll see there's a little thing there at the back and here at the bottom, which is other. It might be that this is sort of a shadow showing through that. If that is the case, don't do a report like this. Do not do a report like this where one graph is lying behind the other graph, so you don't really know how high it is. The only reason I figured it out is because there's a little lilac purple blob at the bottom. Rather turn the report then 45 degrees sideways, or something like that, or in the angular way that one can actually see the peaks and the valleys. So yes, that might be a reason why there's a dark color like that. But getting back to the analysis of the graph, you would see here there's a social media dip and then it rose again. So typically in analysis, we would like to go in there and say listen, what did we do differently in this period compared to that period and compared to this period? Something we did something wrong here on social media, and we reanalyze and reposition our social media campaign from here forwards to ensure that we don't make that same mistake. So it does seem like they were doing something right, and then they went down, and then they just bottomed out, and then they start to recover a little bit. So you have to go into the history of your social media campaign and figure out what went wrong and then come up with a solution. Referrals, why did it increase like that? Did you run a campaign whereby you say for every 2 friends that like us, our page, you have will get something for free or extra content or something? Yeah, it might influence that. And then obviously this dip and that dip, which bothers me a lot. You'll see them on all 3 graphs. You'll see that. And what also bothers me about this display, this view, is I don't see display. I don't see any green here. It might be that scenario where I say the graphs are behind each other, but then this display is not helping. Direct, where's that one? Or is this direct? It looks like other, but it could be direct as well. Paid search. You want to tell me that they don't do any paid search? Paid search. You see that again, if I look very closely, you're going to see there's a little bit of a line running on top. There's slightly different color, but it doesn't seem like any of these colors. So it might be that the paid search might be behind there. So I did not anticipate this. While I'm discussing this, I'm picking up things. It's not the ideal. Even in this, you remember if I discussed this one, I said my logic tells me the Chrome is the darker one, which is just lying on top, and the Internet Explorer is the big one. Whereas if this was the case on this side, then is it the same on that side or not? So yes, I've given you a lot of questions, but often questions help you to interpret graphs and make you see where the end user, the boardroom meeting director, the CEO, where they're going to struggle to interpret the graphs. And you need to ensure that things like this does not transpire. So always ensure your graphs are easily understandable, people can view it and see what it is. And like I've mentioned before, if at all possible, have an IT person who does the actual programming in the boardroom, or at least the head of the programming division, who's well versed and went through the ranks and understand your system. Remember, Often in IT companies, it takes about 7 months for the IT people to actually understand the system because it's completely different programming language often, or there's existing code that's there. Now the new person comes in and you have to change this little bit of code and this little bit of code, but he doesn't know the rest yet. So it's important to have IT people on board, especially when you have somebody, and hopefully that's you, that will ask difficult questions to ensure that the report and your movement based on the report doesn't generate the wrong reaction and action plan for the company going forward, because that can be very dangerous. So yes, I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see if we can make some other graphs and make you understand it more.